This week, we're exploring international trade agreements and policy space for low-income countries. Trade policy sets framework of laws and agreements that shape how a country engages with global markets. And policy space itself refers to a nation's freedom to design economic, social, environmental, and cultural policies that align with its own development goals, such as supporting local industries, protecting the environment, or improving the public welfare. The challenge is to balance this freedom with the global trade rules that often limit it.
According to Robert Killam's two-level game approach, governments negotiate trade policy in two arenas at once. Domestically, they face pressure from industries, unions, and voters. Internationally, they must strike deals that align with other nations. Three factors shape their success: the power of domestic and international coalitions, the rules and institutions that set limits like WTO, and the strategies negotiators use, whether cooperative or confrontational. Together, these dynamics show that international trade rules and domestic policymaking are deeply connected, each shaping and constraining the other.
Policy space determine how much autonomy government retain while operating within the global institutions like WTO, IMF, and World Bank. Yes, these institutions offer narrow flexibility through trade and loan conditions, making it harder for the developing nations to protect local industries and fund social programs. The real challenge is balance. Too little policy undermines development and too much can threaten global trade stability. WTO and regional agreements restrict tools like tariffs and subsidies seen in Indian food subsidy dispute. TRIPS and GATT also affect access to medicine and essential services like healthcare and education, while environmental rules can clash with climate policy as seen in the debate over the US Inflation Reduction Act.
The post-war multilateral trading system began with embedded liberalism, and under GATT, developing countries had wide policy space through shallow commitments. But later, the shift to hyper-globalization caused deeper integration through WTO plus financial globalization, restricting developing countries' policy space. Traditional tools like export subsidies or local content rules are now limited under TRIPS, FTMs, and JIPs, and the consequences reflected in Article U.S. Gathering K. Reveal a legitimacy deficit as more states fail to enforce compliance. The collapse of Doha Round, driven by developing countries' refusal to sacrifice more policy space, show that MTS rules have significantly tightened their autonomy over time.
Second, low-income countries crave out more policy space. Let's look at China and Vietnam, shaped by shifting global power. So China is a rare success story. After joining the WTO in 2001, it cut tariffs and subsidies used the remaining space to invest in education, technology, and infrastructure. Even under WTO rules, strategic state plans limit into long-term growth. But Vietnam path was shorter. For example, during Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations, strict patent rules on HIV medicines limited Vietnam's ability to produce affordable treatment, showing how trade law can directly shrink policy space and even cost lives. This pressure deepened under the Trump trade war, when 57% tariffs of Chinese goods disrupted supply chains, and Vietnam briefly gained new investment group but grew more dependent, proving that global powers will legitimize whose policy space matter most.
So what can we learn? Country can expand autonomy through collective action and smart reform, maybe by joining alliances like ASEAN and G33, and smart domestic reform by strengthening education, innovation, and sustainability like what China does.
So in conclusion, a fair global economy depends on nations having enough freedom to pursue policies that suit their own circumstances. Low-income countries can regain some of policy space through coalitions and smart domestic strategies, but limited power often keeps them at a disadvantage. Therefore, active engagement in trade negotiation is crucial, not just to gain market access and attract investment, but to have a voice in shaping the rules themselves. However, the rise of Trump 2.0 has pushed developing nations to reconsider how they can protect their domestic policy space.